Hi, this is Ashisha Pedekar and welcome to my podcast, The Yardi Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Vincent. Vincent is an accomplished entrepreneur and data enthusiast. He is currently a co-founder at Mozaik, which is an AI plus data startup. Prior to this, he was the co-founder and CEO of Objective, a company that provided an open source analytics infrastructure aimed at revolutionizing customer data modeling. He has a rich history in the tech industry. Vincent also co-founded Distimo and served as its CEO, contributing significantly to the analytics space. His expertise extends to product analytics, having held a pivotal role at eBuddy. Vincent's educational background includes a Master of Science in Business Information Technology from the University of Twente. Over to you, Vincent. Look forward to your vision for AI and hear you on the top 5 trends in AI plus data. Over to you, Vincent.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Welcome.
So thanks for having me on the show, Ashish. And an interesting topic for sure to dive into what's going on the AI and data space. I think it's quite a lot. And I think maybe to start, I mean, if you look at the whole space right now, for us as data folks, we've been in the data space for a while and having built different analytics and other solutions. Well, what really strikes us as the key thing that's so different today is that AI and data has become a management team / board level topic in virtually any company that we speak to, from smaller sizes to the big enterprises. It's on the table everywhere, where in these like top level conversations, there's somebody at the table, or in multiple cases, more people saying, we need to do something with AI. That's at least the bare minimum of the conversation that we hear. And I think that's maybe the key trend, that it comes really top down in many organizations today, where having sold and built data products before, we always saw this stuff coming up bottom up, where data engineers or data science folks or heads of IT had an idea that they needed a certain piece of technology to get something done. And they would pitch this to budget higher level to get approval. There was rarely somebody in a board meeting saying that we really should build a data lake. You know, it was different. And I think today it's really top down, that these companies really see that there's so much potential in AI and data in general today that it should be on the roadmap of, I would say, any company. So to us, that's really different. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the specific vision for Mozaik AI approaching the opportunity in a different way?
Yeah. So what we really try to do as a company is sort of speak both languages. So we love the technology and we really like to try everything else that's on the market and with large language models and all these fancy things. But we try to translate this also in normal human business language, like what does this all mean and what can you do with this and how can it really help a business grow or gain more customers or save costs or build future products that they can't build yet. So for us, it's being the almost like the translator in the middle to help our customers really figuring out what this all can do, but in understandable language while we still really understand the technology behind it.
Got it. So if I understand, and this is what so let's say there's a CFO in an organization, they have implemented AI. So you would kind of integrate various systems and internal systems. And the CFO kind of asks, in a simple language, like similar to what one would expect while entering or using ChatGPT, and the system would kind of AI tools to get the data. Is that what you're trying to do?
Well, no, that's sort of the type of products that we build, but ultimately what we build for customers is custom solutions, right? So we are not a SaaS product. We are not something that you take off the shelf. We are really more on a consulting-based focus where we help customers in different stages. And the first is always their data and AI strategy. So it's helping them figure out how data and AI can really contribute to their business. Then we go a level deeper. Then we start saying, okay, now once we have a clear goal, what we want to accomplish, we are going to look at your technology infrastructure, your data infrastructure, and help make a design how this should look to be able to do all these things. And for virtually any company that we go into, data is always scattered in different places. It needs to be clean, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be centralized and sort of in a shape that also AI can use it. That's the first thing that we do, and then all the other stuff comes on building AI solutions, building chatbots, and all the more fancier stuff. But it really starts with getting the infrastructure right first.
Got it. So in other ways, so you're a AI plus data consulting expert, and in some way you are also partners with AI platforms, right? Because once you create a specific thing, a specific infrastructure ready, and let's say the customer says, okay, I want to use OpenAI, etc., and then you kind of do the implementation for that in some ways.
And what we think is really interesting in this space, and that's also new, I would say, since a year or so. As on one end, you have all these ready-to-use AI models, right? OpenAI is, of course, the famous example, but there's more today. You have about 10 different players that roughly do the same, where you can choose from. If you go back 5 years in time, this was not there, right? If you wanted to do something with machine learning or AI, you would hire a data science team, make pretty significant budgets for that, and let them develop models themselves mostly, or take bits and pieces off the shelf, but not something that was just ready to use. So I think that greatly has opened up the use cases for more advanced AI things, that this sort of these advanced models became available as infrastructure. So you can use an API of these different vendors.
Got it. That's a nice summary. So coming back to the top 5 trends in your view, AI plus data. So what are some of the trends which you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, so I think one really interesting thing that we see is that many companies are figuring out the uses for mainly AI right now. And if you look what they're all doing, you see a few patterns. So one clear example that everybody is sort of trying around what it can do in a business is chatbots and virtual agents, right? So this is like a ChatGPT, but then inside a company, or a known version for a ChatGPT-like offer for their support team or sales team or their customers. So this conversational interface where you speak to an AI, to a large language model, that's one of the clear use cases. The second that we see are more co-pilots. GitHub has an interesting one where you help software engineers be more productive with the co-pilot that really guides them through their workflow, and is sort of always on the background, helping to make things more efficient, faster. And you really see remarkable results there. It's on one hand not only like being more efficient and fast, but you also, if you look at the GitHub example, they did quite a big research amongst engineers that were using a co-pilot, yes or no. And the job satisfaction for engineers that were using the co-pilot was much, much higher. Which is an interesting also effect of these kinds of use cases. And a few other things that we see sort of in this realm of figuring out the use cases. It's obviously chatting with your own internal data, so bringing the company data to these AI models to be able to understand them, and to go beyond what a normal model from OpenAI would understand. They understand public available data, but not necessarily your company. And I would say those are the biggest use cases, and you see also many companies now trying how far they can push the boundaries in using AI for classification, like defining which, for example, of the thousands of support tickets really need your attention today because something urgent is going on, or assessing risk, or these kinds of things.
Oh, that's a nice lesson. So a couple of queries. So if you look at the AI landscape, practically every week there is something new, right? Which kind of changes everything. So if you look at, it's like the datum or the foundation is getting changed every day. So specifically when you're talking of an enterprise kind of a play, wherein enterprises would like to have something which is long term. It's not a
Yeah,
flash in the pan, right? So at least they
yeah,
have visibility of, let's say, 3 to 5 years at least, right? So
yeah,
in such case, how do you advise your clients in terms of selecting the right AI tools or AI
yeah.
infrastructure and various
Yeah,
tools?
yeah, great question. I think it's a very important subject for making these decisions. What we try to do with customers is saying, okay, um, let's make sure you have a really good control on the fundamentals, right? Sort of your internal data, your data infrastructure and pipeline. Make sure that is of high quality, but also within your own control, running in your own cloud. We are a huge fan of using open source technologies to build this infrastructure because it allows you to do we always call it like a Lego approach. Like you see your kids building things and they can change it up and build something new tomorrow because new building blocks came to the market. So that's what we really try to do. Make sure you have a Lego approach that centers around your internal data warehouse or data lake, or however you want to call it. But make sure you can swap out pieces of technologies and integrate with new ones. Because you're completely right. A lot of new stuff is happening. We are just at the beginning of what all these things can do. So it's really hard to predict where this goes. But what is a certainty is that companies that have a really strong control and good internal data in a clean shape and form and a good structure will always be able to use these different new technologies on the market.
Right. Another follow-up question on that. When we use ChatGPT or any of these AI tools, there's always this thing which is called as hallucination or
Yeah.
things, which is funny or it might be irritating when you're looking at consumer-related things. So, for example, you had Google Gemini, conjuring images which were historically incorrect. But in
Yeah.
a enterprise kind of a use case where they're kind of planning their future based on the results of what AI gives. How do you
Yeah.
review solutions? And plus, do you have these specific guardrails for every use case? How do you approach that?
Yeah. It's a super important point. We focus on two main things there with customers. One is really once you build your first AI offer, it's not going to be 90+% of accuracy. That's just not going to be the case. You see it with many example cases over there. So it's going to require iteration for you to get to an initial level of quality to something that's really hitting the mark. So the first thing that we do is make sure you have clearly defined what quality is for you. So how do you measure the output of these models for your business? How do you constantly measure if things are at a good level, great level, or something is going wrong? So measuring that with data is the first thing that we do. Making sure you can iterate on this, saying, hey, we are trying a new model from somebody else, or we do something different with our data. And then you really want to understand if this has improved the quality of your output. That's the first thing. And the second thing that always has a lot of attention is sort of the learn to say no, learn to say I don't know as a AI product. Because these large language models are inherently sort of trained to never say I don't know. They always will try to find an answer. And we work with technologies like a bit more advanced, like fine-tuning, to give these models a lot of wrong answers and also have a good sense of being able to say, for this question, I'm not sure. This can be correct, but you might also want to talk to somebody from our team or go to a normal knowledge base. So for us, it's a really important point that you enable AI to be sort of also say, it stops here. I can't help you, but please go here. That's much better than giving the wrong answer.
Cool. Also, what I could gather from what you said, it's also important to ensure that clients' expectations are set right. But as we know, AI is currently to use the Gartner hype cycle, framework. It's all hype, right? So maybe customers or enterprise customers, they should have the expectation that it's not a magic bullet, right? Where you implement AI and the next day, you'll have 100% improvement in all matrices, right? It's as hard work as any other software implementation project.
It totally is, and with I think we have so many conversations where we really try from the get-go to set the landmark that the first release is not going to be either perfect or the end. It's what you say, it's like any normal software development. It's the first thing that you put out. OpenAI showed some example cases that with even their largest customers where they work with their best people, the initial accuracy of that AI offer is going to be 40-50%. So it's going to be wrong in quite a bit of the cases, but that's not so bad if you have set the expectations right and that you will iterate getting it to 90.
Got it. So in fact, what you said also, brings about a point. Many folks or many commentators say that AI is going to take away jobs, etc. But somehow, what I feel specifically is require experts to help use AI, because you won't have a scenario, at least in the B2B space, wherein it's all autonomous AI agents running amok. Like you'll have, maybe AI would be a tool used by scientists to write inputs from business and other stakeholders to get the best answer. Is that
Yeah, so we definitely see the largest potential today on being this co-pilot, being there next to people, helping you be more efficient in your daily work. And great if an AI, for example, Klarna, the buy now, pay later company, it's a very big public company. They said in their latest reports that they now have an AI offer that handles quite a bit of customer support questions. Actually, a lot. It handles 2.3 million conversations with folks that normally would be with support engineers, but it allows their support engineers to be freed up more for the more complex, really personal attention cases instead of doing only volume.
Got it.
So I think it's more on increasing productivity. It's on increasing the sort of job satisfaction, actually, if you look at the GitHub example for engineers.
Got it. On the same point of GitHub, so we call Devin, which is kind of AI agent for coding in to use a very rough language. So do you see more of such agentic AIs popping up in the landscape? And maybe there are small islands within specific domains. Is that something you do?
Yeah, well, one thing we actually see now a lot is that you see autonomous AI agents for outbound sales work. So, I mean, you probably even see it on your own LinkedIn. There's quite an increase on inbound from sort of new companies and new offers. And I think in more and more cases, AI sort of autonomous agents are going to be behind that. And you already see a few companies that have built something that actually works really well, and that does the initial research on prospects and leads and writes emails and send those out, and can do that really autonomous. So I do think for these kind of roles, and we have to really see how the quality of that evolves and how it's going to work longer time. But you see more of these types of offers coming to the market.
Got it. How do you define guardrails or boundary conditions when you're implementing some AI projects? Because it would be pretty important in multiple cases. So let's say you're in a banking client, or you're in some other client. So the last thing you want to avoid is using maybe past data, cases, things like that. So how do you take care of such challenges?
Yeah, it's in a few ways. One, we are very big fans of companies controlling their own customer data themselves. So we always advise to, and there's so many tools now today and cloud platforms to have your data in a secure data cloud from the Azures and Amazons and Google of the world, where your company data and other important things sit. So you have control. The second thing that you really need to do is anonymization, to make sure that once you start doing things with AI, you've thought about really well before you give data to a large language model, that you really think well about filtering things out that you don't want to end up there, customer data or customer names or sensitive cases. So you need to be very careful that doesn't go there. And the last thing that you can do quite well today, thanks to, I would say, the cloud providers, is to make sure that your data not necessarily is going to an API all over the world to another country, and you're sort of lost where it goes. You can control this pretty strict that it stays within your own data cloud. But you need to be careful there. I totally agree, especially with all the AI products out there today. They are all very data hungry.
Yeah.
So you need to be very careful where your own data sort of ends up.
Got it. Got it. So any success stories or use cases, any clients which gives client kind of moment wherein they really love what AI could do, and conversely, any use cases or any case studies which you would like to share when learnings things did not go as planned and the project was kind of met expectations and
Yeah, I think we've seen. So if you look at like the whole pipeline from ID to AI products, we've seen a lot of success at customers on building these conversational AI offerings, and that can be either we have had some really good cases on handling complex support cases with a large chunk that the AI will handle this. So really freeing up overloaded support teams. Where the AI can 60, 70, 80% of the questions go there. That has been a great success. And we see also a lot of application in either content generation and those things, where AI is really used to generate pieces of content that normally would be created by hand, of course. I think there's a lot of things going on over there, and you see many software products that users can be helped better in thinking beyond the like traditional search that almost sits in any product. So we have quite a few customers that have, for example, big knowledge bases of documents where their customers need to search for and go through and find their answers. And that would normally be like a Google-like search box. Type your query, I mean, here's 3,000 documents that have an order but have something to do with this. So instead of giving those 3,000 documents, we see really good example cases where AI can really give an answer or have a conversation to get to the perfect answer instead of laying the work to the user.
Got it. Any examples where the implementation was as per expectations, and what were some key learnings from that?
Not so in that sense, because we always are really rigidly upfront that things are not going to be perfect on your first launch. It's just not going to be like that. So I think as long as you do that, you can prevent that. And so far, we've had people really understanding that. Because if you can explain in normal terms how AI makes right or wrong decisions and how data can influence this and how you give data to AI can influence this and all the stuff that you can do to improve this, we've seen as long as you have a plan, people are really willing to accept that new technology is not going to be perfect out of the gates. I think the biggest mistake that some people could make is thinking it's this silver bullet that's going to change everything in a few weeks and it's going to be shiny and perfect and always right. There's just more to that.
Right. So any tips or suggestions on what not to do when you're looking at taking up AI projects in enterprise or B2B? Any specific tips based on your experience?
Yeah, we've seen, we'd like to keep things simple. So don't overcomplicate things. We've seen also VCs map out this like the new AI infrastructure map, and then you see 40 different tools that you should be using and all these different places. And complexity just makes it so incredibly hard to iterate on later. And we know that AI needs iteration to get things right. So what we see go wrong sometimes is that people overcomplicate their initial infrastructure because they want to go for real time and massive scale and all these things. And if you then really look at the use cases, in many cases, it really doesn't need to be so complex in terms of technology requirements. We see, and it's, for example, one tangible example, we see many use cases work well on very old database technology like Postgres, which is 27 years old today. But it works really well for large language models. It's simple, it's easy to maintain, and it's easy to iterate on. So it's not massive scale, but in many cases it doesn't need to be for the first AI use cases.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks, Vincent. This was a wonderful conversation. It really gives a great perspective. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. To subscribe, share podcast. Do consider giving us a 5-star rating if you found the content useful. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.